To start. So it's great that I've got Stephen and Sandra Parsons all the way from Japan. They're actually having a domestic dispute. They're 130 kilometres away from each other. No, that's not actually true. They're doing all different things. So they're in different Zooms. So I was going to ask you, you actually should be in New South Wales at the moment on furlough. So tell us a little bit about how important is furlough to missionaries?
Do you want to go, Diane? Me? Yeah, I think it's very important to have connection again with the people in Australia. First, of course, family and friends, and churches and the people in the churches. Getting some one-on-one time with each of the churches and people, individuals. I think it's a special time of catch-up, plus physically and emotionally as well, spiritually as well. Yeah.
We often call it a bit of a brain break as well, in that we don't have to think about Japanese as much, and the intensity of working in a different culture and ministering with different people, it's a bit of a rest from that as well, which allows us to get more reserves and be a lot more ready to return and do what God's got in store for us there. So brain break really seems to explain a lot of it. So furlough is sort of the idea of just getting away from the norm and being able to get refreshed.
So with you missing out on that, how are you going to keep yourself refreshed? Do you know when your furlough is going to happen, or what are you thinking? How do you cope with the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months? How are you going to cope with that?
Well, the furloughs can be all different lengths. Some people do every 2 years, some 3, every 4, some even do 5. We've been on a 2-year cycle for a while now, with very short times in Australia, so the kids don't miss out on school. And so it's during their summer vacation. And so it's been 2 years since we've been in Australia, and it looks like our next furlough will be in 2 years' time now. It's been delayed for 2 years, which is when Megumi finishes high school. We thought we'd wait for our kids to finish school, and then that means we'd be able to have about 6 months in Australia then. And that's more normal to have a longer period of time in the country where you serve, and then have somewhere between 6 to 12 months in Australia. So that's what our plans are at this stage, depending upon lots of bits and pieces. So we were going to rush back to Australia, have a couple of 2 to 3 months, see as many people as we can, and then get back for the kids' school. Well, we won't have to do that in 2 years' time. And so
how are you going to have a brain break then, in that coming time, in the next 12 to 24 months?
It's really important when you're in another culture to have good cycles of rest, which includes evenings and then at least 1 day of Sabbath, and then 4 weeks of holiday through the year. And we're fairly good at keeping that up. And that's really helpful as far as getting emotionally and physically restored. Spiritual health is an ongoing thing, no matter where you are and which country you're in. That's what we'll plan to do. That's what we normally do in the 2 to 3 years that we're here. And I had a couple of weeks off just about a month ago, which was incredibly refreshing and helpful. The brain break won't be there as much. There's times when we have trips overseas to different places where we do get a brain break, but that's not an option at the moment. We're basically stuck here at the moment. The opportunities to actually be totally separate from Japan, we don't really know. It really depends what happens with COVID.
And we might keep on talking to you, Steve, because Sandra's, the sound's not as good. So how have things been going for you? We probably spoke to you about 2.5 months ago. How have things been going for you and the church?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we're doing fine. We've kept well. COVID cases went down just like they did in Australia, and then they started going back up again, and they are again and rising. And so it's not unlike Australia, actually. The way Japan deals with it is very differently, but the numbers have been yeah, amazingly similar, although it sounds like things are pretty bad in Victoria at the moment.
Yep.
Um, the church that we go to had one Sunday back. We weren't able to go that week. And then because Sandra was up at the retreat centre and something else was happening that week, and then they had to stop it again because the numbers were starting to zoom up. So a lot of churches are still not meeting, and if they are, it's only a very small number of people able to go. And so online is still pretty big here. That's in Tokyo. In country areas, things are a lot easier, and a lot of churches are, I can't say they're back to normal, but the churches are often very small anyway. And so a lot of them are meeting regularly again with as much social distancing as possible. But yeah, Tokyo is still in a fairly bad way and with restrictions.
And I think there was some talk last time about that actually an interactive, an online service is a good entry point for some Japanese people. Is that proving to be continuing to happen?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a country church that one of our missionaries is running where they have been able to start meeting, and they've had to get a new location to fit everyone in, not just for social distancing, but also because they've grown so much over the last 5 months, which has been unbelievable. So they're now renting this community hall instead of this small house that they used to be able to be involved in. I think that's one of the big prayer points. It's probably true in Australia too. Like, how do you follow up all these people that are connected online? Some of them aren't even in the same city that you're in. So how do you effectively minister to those people? I think for Japanese people, it's really hard to go to church. It's like there's a lot of unknowns there, and a lot of it's just so different to what they're used to. And Japanese culture, that going into a church can be very, very difficult, and especially with the shame culture that's here, it can make it even worse, where a lot of that is relaxed when you're online because you're not having to interact with people as much. So the big question is, how much of this do you continue? Like, should we always be having online services even when we do get back to some kind of normal again? It's one of the big issues that a lot of our church planners and people in the church are thinking through now.
Or even specialist online churches. So
Mm.
not necessarily on every church, but there'd be one or two that have been particularly good in that regard.
Yeah, that could be another option. I haven't heard of anyone thinking quite that way at this stage, but that could be a very strategic ongoing ministry actually in Japan.
Yeah, yeah. So how else can we pray?
Yeah, well, our kids are on a break now, on their summer break. They're probably going back to school on the 20th of August. That's still very much up in the air, but they're looking at half days and gradually phasing in school. They were off school for 3 months before the holidays, so they haven't been studying at the school for most of this year so far. So it's going to be interesting to see whether that can start. We'd really like to make the most of our time with the kids during that time, and for them to be able to use the time well and get ready. Joshua will be going into year 12 and Megumi into year 11. And so they're in a very important stage of their education now. That you guys helped towards getting me to Australia for leadership training back in March. I got in and out just before Australia closed down, and that was invaluable, that training. There's 3 sessions like that. The second one was closed because of COVID, or stopped because of COVID. They're looking at doing it online in October. I'm learning so much through this executive leaders training for non-profits. It's been amazingly helpful. It's helped me in my spiritual growth, as well as my ability to understand people better and to be able to help them do well. So thank you everyone for the contribution that you guys made to that. That was that October, November last year? You raised
Yes.
fundraiser. Yeah, I benefit greatly from that, and I'm hoping everyone around me is going to benefit from it as well. But that's happening in October, and there's a whole lot of stuff happening online. It's all moving to online, so there won't be any more trips to Australia for that by the looks. But I'm thankful that I can continue that. But yeah, I'm still transitioning into this role. I've been in this role now for a year, but I'm restructuring a lot of things and reworking a lot of things to make things work within the giftings of our people. And that's taking a lot of time, but it's very worthwhile, and it's great seeing people grow through that.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Our Zoom meeting's going to end soon because I haven't got Pro, so therefore I'm sorry about that. But we will continue to pray for you, and we really thank you for giving us this time, and we look forward to sort of speaking to you and seeing you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
You. Bye.
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 I